Hello and welcome to my video presentation for my prototype for the class on Coursera, Design, Creation of Artifacts in Society by Carl T. Ulrich. And today what I'm going to be doing is showing my prototype and basically talking about it and explaining some of the things about it, some things that users have given to me as their user input, things I could change. Yeah, so I'll basically just be talking about it. My gap was to create something that would help to attract spectators or people who would watch card magic, or what is known as cardistry, which is basically just fancy shuffling of cards. And my prototype is a custom deck of cards that I designed and had printed by the service MakePlayingCards.com. So I'll just be going through basically what these cards look like, how they work, and some things that users have told me, and that kind of stuff. So this is my final prototype, and it's called the Dark Hearts playing cards. And basically some of the design elements are I used a lot of gradient to create a very dark and sort of mysterious look. There's a lot of floral, swirly design elements that I put in there just to make it look fancy, give something to attract the eyes. And there's a lot of use of gloss and that kind of stuff on these cards, as was presented by Mr. Ulrich in whatever the lesson was on aesthetics and stuff. But yeah, so here's the back design of the cards. It has two hearts, one right there and one right there, with a bunch of designs in the gradient. It's a little bit darker than I had originally planned, and the reason why is because the design that I made on the computer was in RGB, and then when I printed it at the company, they print in CMYK, which basically, long story short, it made the back a lot darker than I intended, but you know, you live and you learn. So that's that, and as you can see, there's these little notches right here and here, and what those are for is for when you fan the cards like that, it gives a nice look, and you can see on the edges right there. Let's see if I can get that to show up. It has a nice notched edge right there on the fan. So now I want to get into a little bit of the design elements of the faces of the cards, starting off with the aces. Now this right here is the ace of spades, but all four aces have been customized, so you can see they're all completely customized, and I used a lot of gloss and stuff to make it look like they're sort of gemstones, that kind of thing. And for those of you who are used to a regular deck of cards, you'll notice that the hearts and the diamonds are actually black, and that the spades and the clubs are red, and that would seem backwards. But that was really the idea with this deck, was that the hearts are dark, and then the rest of the stuff is red. And then we can take a look at the royalty, so the jacks, you can see the same color variation where the hearts and diamonds are black, and the clubs and spades are red. And then I've recolored all of the cards, so all of those colors have been changed to the colors I wanted them to be. And if you were to compare it with a normal deck of cards, you would notice that it's quite different. Now the queens, same thing. The black and the red have been switched, and then all the rest of the colors are custom. And the same exact thing goes for all the kings. Now as for the jokers, I have borrowed the design from a different deck of cards that exists called Fournier. I like the joker, and it sort of matched the design, and so I have one in black and one in red. So there's the two colors of the red cards and the black cards, and two jokers. And so part of the reason I didn't leave them both just black or both just red is so that you can do exactly what I just did. You can make them change, and the color would give a contrast, and make it look nice. Now, as far as the rest of the cards, they're just standard card faces. They look totally normal. I didn't change any of the placement of the symbols and stuff on the cards. I just left it normal, so they're basically the same exact as a regular deck of cards. Now, into the handling and the materials that were used, MakePlayingCards.com has a very good selection of stock paper and finish to use, and so this is, they say, 310 GSM paper stock, so it's quite thick, which makes the cards very durable. These have been used in card games, and they've been used by me for hours just messing around with them, and they still work quite well. You can see they fan and they spread totally good. So they are very durable. What also is quite durable is the finish, which would be the coating on the paper for the cards. And so if I hold this up real close, hopefully you should be able to see that there are actually, I don't know if you can see that very well, but there are not bubbles, but they're sort of little, like a waffle pattern on the cards. And what that is little air bubbles that go into the cards and keep the cards separate, so there's air in between them, and what that does is it helps to make the cards handle well. So that makes fans work well, it makes spreads work well, all kinds of things. So with a deck of cards that's just smooth, doesn't have those air bubbles, it won't last as long, and it will not handle as well. And so the waffle pattern or the air bubbles is something that you would see on a standard deck of bicycle playing cards, which you can find literally anywhere, made by the US Playing Card Company. Basically the most popular deck of cards used by magicians and cardists alike. And so that's why I opted for this finish and stock instead of a smooth finish, which I could have used. I decided to stick with this one because it will last a lot longer. And it will handle better. So once again, something that I mentioned, that the stock is quite thick. When you do a spring, which looks like that, or a little bit of a bigger spring, it's a little bit more difficult because the paper is very thick, so it's kind of hard to bend, and it pushes very hard against your hand, so it's difficult to bend the cards like that. Also, shuffling feels a little bit strange because the cards are very thick, so they do shuffle, and they shuffle just fine, but it's a little bit difficult for especially people with small hands and younger people to shuffle the cards because they're quite thick. One thing that a lot of people, a lot of magicians worry about is that cards that are printed in China, which these are, they think that they do not do what is called a Pharaoh shuffle, which is basically a perfect shuffle of the cards, one every other, but these cards do, and you can see that right there. They actually do that. So you see every other card is in there. I think I missed like one or two right there at the very beginning, but they do work, and what that is used for is what is called a giant fan. And that was not the best giant fan I've ever done, but it does look quite good. And that's what I put a lot of these swirly designs for, is so that when you do something like a giant fan, it looks very nice. Now, while these cards are quite slippery and they do handle well for fans and things, they do stick together pretty well too. Like if you've ever gone through a science class and they talk about inertia with a deck of cards, if you drop the whole deck as a brick, they stay together. But if they're separate or they're kind of unsquared, they'll fall apart. And so that same principle works with these cards. So when you do something, some kind of cut where you split the packets, they stay together quite easily. Even when you do quite quick and spinny motions, they stick together very well. And you see I didn't drop any cards, and that probably looked like it takes a lot of practice. It does, but with some other cards that I have, they do not stay together this well. And I just dropped one card, but that's probably my fault, not the card's fault. But anyway, so these cards are very nice, and once again, one of the needs that I had in my project was that the cards work for playing cards with, and also Magic. And I have had people play cards with these, and they work just fine. And people would ask a lot, why are the cards, why'd you switch the color of the cards? And I would just tell them, because I wanted to. That was sort of the design of the deck, and it didn't confuse them at all for the card game. It still works. And for Magic, of course, because there's such a good contrast between the black and the red, things like color changes look pretty good. So yeah, that is basically all that I have to say. Yeah, so this is my prototype of the Dark Hearts playing cards. I plan to continue this design and continue designing playing cards in the future, even after this class is over. But that is my prototype, and I hope you guys liked it. I really had fun doing this course and creating a prototype and doing design, and I've learned a lot, and a lot of things can apply to the rest of my life. So thank you guys for watching, and please give me feedback in the comment section so that I can continue to learn and continue to become a better designer. So thank you guys.